Employees of McDonald's, what secrets did you discover while working there? My old McDonald's had a basement. My first day on the job I was told to be on the lookout for the elderly gentleman who would try to sneak around the counter and pour the entire coffee pot into his mug, while everyone was too busy to stop him. Sauces for sandwiches have the craziest dispensers. Ketchup and mustard are in these really rudimentary plastic funnel things that have a paddle in the handle. When you squeeze it, gravity pushes just the right amount of sauce through holes. Doesn't seem like it'd work well, but it does if you apply the proper amount of jiggling. The mac sauce, mayo, and tartar though, they're in basically cork tubes that get loaded into basically cork guns. You pull the trigger on the handle and a really satisfying ratchety clanking delivers a powerfully saucy surprise for the awaiting buns. Problem is, it takes a bit of finesse, because if you hit that trigger too hard you'll blow the bun and a wad of cream right through the condiment station and onto the wall 8 feet away. No joke. The first couple tartar splurts of a fresh tube came out so hot I'd fire a shot or two in the trash to avoid premature spatulation during the lunch rush. The first salvo, properly elevated and adjusted for wind, could clear the whole kitchen and take out the McInfantry on the cash register. Drop any unopened chicken nugget sauce on the ground once you've got yourself a sauce grenade. Before I worked there, I always thought they used a grill. Turns it's more of a heated press machine. Depending on which one you work at, the parking lot is basically a meetup for drug dealers, and at least where I was in New Mexico, people to meet up and have sex in their cars, as long as they kept their business to the middle of the night and didn't cause any serious problems. We were told not to call the cops or make a fuss, mostly because they'd come in and buy food after their shenanigans. Soda and mini pies were really popular with heroin addicts. What I later found out is that management was actually told to let it slide by corporate, since everyone higher up was aware of how much money the night crowd brought in. I got to see many drug deals. I'm convinced I saw at least one arms deal, but I of course have no way of verifying that. The pickles are surprisingly aerodynamic. They stick to walls, and if you have the Stones manager's shirts pretty well. Worked there in high school. Found out that if you put the middle of a Mac bun in the fryer and then add soft serve and strawberry topping, it tastes just like a funnel cake. Custom creations were the best part of working there. Edit: I have thoroughly enjoyed hearing about all of your own custom creations. You have all made my workday much less boring. So thank you. The official deodorizing spray they gave us is the most pleasant thing I've ever smelled in my entire life. Even now, I wish I could smell it again. Edit: okay, so this is a spray you use on the bathrooms or the bowl pit to make them smell better, not personalized deodorant. Former employee here. I found out that when making 5 gallons of sweet tea, an entire 4-pound bag of sugar goes in. Sandwiches with round egg use real. Cracked eggs, folded and scrambled, come from packaged goods in the freezer or fridge. I also had a manager that insisted more people purchase filet-o-fish when it's raining out because they subconsciously associate the watery weather with fish. Anyway, he did some research by pouring through sales of filet-o-fish for months and months and comparing it to weather data for each day. Turns out he found something like a 3% increase on rainy days and was very pleased with himself. Edit: wow. I will answer some of your questions up here so people can see. The manager voiced his theory one day, and the crews all argued with him about it. This went on for a while. He was committed to proving us wrong, so he secretly pulled the sales numbers at work and did the rest on his own time, never breathing a word until he brought his printed report in to shut us all up. He did separate Fridays during Lent and compared those days to each other in anticipation of having holes poked in his research. We still did that anyway, of course. As pointless and imperfect as the research was, it was impressive to see his commitment to giving us the middle finger. I worked there when I was in high school, not a secret, but I hadn't known much about franchises before then. I hadn't realized that McDonald's could vary quite a bit in quality and professionalism based on who the owners were and what type of management workplace they set up. I worked at a really good one with good management. But some are shit. My manager used to be on my back all of the time for giving out too much sauce. He tried telling me the limit is 1 per meal. I'm based in the UK. Our portions generally are smaller here, but I would still give out as many sauces as possible. FCK being stingy. Dehydrated onions. You put them in a metal thing and just add water. The thing is they still taste great. But I was shocked and happy that I didn't have to go cut onions. Cool story. I worked there in my teens for a couple years. Actually worked at 2 different locations, so I saw the difference in standards. At one store there was a guy who always rode his bike to the store every single day to hang out. He was on the spectrum. Slow, and McDonald's was kind of his castle. Everyone knew him, and he got a lot of free food from the employees. He was a daily part of the shift for us. Anyway, one day he had one too many root beers. This was a thing he normally did because he pretended the root beers were like real beers and he would get drunk. Everyone kind of would go along with it because he was funny and never did anything too wild. Unfortunately this day he took it a little too far and ended up in the parking lot throwing bottles at cars driving by. Long story short, guy was arrested and he was banned from that McDonald's for life. Kinda felt bad about it because that McDonald's was his favorite place to be. He would pull through at 3 or 4 on his bike and stay and hang out with employees until like 8 every single day. Before that incident, one of the managers even made him his own little parking spot for his bicycle. He was happy as heck. I think about that guy sometimes. Hope he's found himself a new McDonald's. LOL. I learned that if I have time to lean, I have time to clean. I worked at McDonald's when they first introduced sweet tea, and remember that it was brewed in a large bucket mixing hot water with a full bag of granulated sugar. It makes me sick to think about, but I still sometimes crave that disgustingly sweet tasty garbage. For the one I worked at in high school, burgers are kept in a warming area for no more than 15 minutes then thrown out, and new ones are made. You get a free meal from anything except the salads. Meal is a sandwich, medium fries and a medium drink. At the end of the night all the cooked meat is thrown out. If you want you can use it to make burgers and take them home with you. Specific tools and grill section for cooking chicken versus beef to make sure they don't cross for those customers who don't eat beef. The Hindu cowwalkers were very vocal about this rule if you work the grill. Worked at McDonald's Australia. Back when we had the old cheeseburger buns. Before McDonald's got healthy we used to scrunch up the buns and deep fry in the fry vat. Covered them in sugar. And you end up with something tasting like donuts. Man. Reading these I'm wondering why my McDonald's was so boring. We didn't spit on anything. The stuff that needed to be kept clean was kept clean. If it wasn't required it would be filthy. The ice cream machine worked fine. Food wasn't undercooked, on occasion it was overcooked. Employing high school kids, of course they are gonna make some mistakes. But nothing too bad. Worked in one from 2000 to 2005. During this time, they changed the bacon. The new bacon isn't as good. During this time, they changed the shake mix. The new shake mix isn't as good. The shake machine works just fine, so long as someone remembers to fill it before it gets too empty and goes into automatic 90-minute self-clean mode. It also takes a very long time to start up, so if someone forgets, there's no shakes for 30 minutes. This was never a problem for me. Whenever I did opening shift, I'd kick off the coffee brewing for my team, then start up the shake machine for myself. The chocolate chip cookies and McGriddles taste amazing if you eat fresh out of the oven. Always made an extra half tray for myself. If you're ordering a meal, say the size first large number 1 with a Coke, everyone knows that ordering the meal is cheaper than getting that same sandwich, fries, and drink individually. But here's a secret: the pose has a button for the large one and a different button for the medium one, then another menu for the drinks. So if you say I want a one with a Coke, I can't hit any buttons until I know the sizes of the meal, the size of the fries, and the size of the drink. The McDonald's that I worked at kept a very clean kitchen and front line. I had worked in restaurants that were privately owned, and the food standards throwing out old food and cleanliness just weren't the same. I was very surprised with how much they constantly made us clean. I started working at McDonald's when I was 15. The secret is that it's probably one of the cleanest restaurants in your city. The standardizations and routine practices leave little room for employees to think for themselves. It was a way cleaner restaurant than the 30-50 per person place I would work at later. Anyone who says they messed with food was lying, unless it's something boring like, we left patties in the warmers too long. One thing I was shocked by, this was pre-internet forums being widely used, so it was just info from people working there, was that no burgers are flipped. You put your 10 1 patties or 4 1 patties on the grill and hit a couple buttons and a second grill comes down and both sides are cooked for you. I loved scooping a big tower of them off the grill to plop into the warming trays. Also, I worked in one in the desert and sometimes our rack would crap out, but only for the back. So you'd be sweating over the stupid grill and your coworkers would be hiding in the freezer. So many affairs and love triangles. Also, I don't know if this counts, but the food was not gross at all. Like, our kitchen was super clean. Our meat was frozen and cheap, but it was never gross. Our veggies were always good. The only thing gross was the fact that if you worked the French fries, you would go home covered in oil, but the actual oil wasn't gross. Maybe I just worked at a nicer McDonald's, but we weren't in the nicest of areas. Raw McRibs look hella weird though. Multiply 10 to 1 burger patties. Every 10, 1 is a tenth of a pound of beef. These go in most of the smaller burgers. A McDouble and a Big Mac have the same amount of beef to them. The difference between them is the Mac sauce instead of ketchup and mustard. The middle bun, sesame seeds, and lettuce. The difference between a double cheeseburger and a McDouble is 1 slice of cheese. McRibs are the messiest sandwich we had to make. In addition to cooking it, the McRibs stewed in their sauce in the universal heating cabinet UHC until used. That required a special pair of tongs, because it was pork and cross-contamination applies to religious stuff as well. No matter how careful you were, you always made a mess. Burrito mix came pre-cooked and frozen. You wrapped a slice of cheese with the stuff, and it was put in a queuing oven, which was a glorified microwave until hot. That's it. No real cooking done. Breakfast breads was the easiest back-end position during breakfast. Things just took time. McGriddle buns were baked frozen then thrown into the queuing oven. To make them soft, biscuits were queued then baked. Bagels and muffins were toasted. McDonald's uses beef fat, if I remember correctly, for their fryers. When the oil was new, it was literally white until it got hot. A patch of sweet tea took 5 pounds of sugar for 5 gallons of tea. You can feel the cavities as you made it. Grilled chicken took the longest to cook and was kinda a pain. Some breasts could be in the UHC for hours before finally tossed. And that's all I got for now. If you want a good replacement Big Mac sauce, 3 big tablespoons of good quality mayo, about a single good tablespoon of ketchup, 2 teaspoons of gherkin relish, 1 tablespoon also of pickle juice, 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, half to 1 teaspoon of turmeric. Mix till thoroughly combined. Leave in the fridge to let the ingredients make friends with one another over pass. Consider subscribing if you enjoyed this video, and if you want to see more of Reddit Universe,